Okay. I think this should be working. Hopefully.
Okay.
Gotta do a quick check. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
It's working. My camera looks messed up though. What happened to it?
What do you mean? Is it like how it looks or how it's positioned?
Yeah.
Oh.
It looks real weird. I just gotta change the settings real quick, but like I don't know what happened to it. Like the white I don't know. Oh, yeah, I think the white balance was off.
No, I got you.
Weirdly enough. This real quick. Second. Okay. That looks much better.
All right. Well,
Still looks a little
off.
A little bit like I'm in the room from Saw, but
oh, okay.
It is what it is.
You've accepted your fate pretty quickly, so.
Yeah. That's fine. Okay, it's looking a lot less saw-ish now.
Okay.
That's much better. Much better. Okay, cool. I fixed it. I got it.
Right.
Alright, I think I gotta okay. I'm gonna share this. I think it's doing some dumb, like, streamer mode thing where it won't let me. Maybe it will. Is this working? Oh, that works.
I see you. Wow,
there
friend.
we go.
That's my friend.
Wow. Okay. So, let me get this thing started. So yeah, anybody currently watching? Anybody watching the VOD? Welcome to. Oh my God, I am white. Uh-oh. Camera strikes back. Alright, that's good enough. Okay. Anybody currently watching the stream, or anybody watching on YouTube, hello. Welcome back to a little thing I like to call Manga Club. This is a series where I delve into manga that I've never read before, read through them, and just discuss my thoughts in streams now, since I started doing this live, and videos like these. I've done several of these now, and they've, for the most part, stayed consistent, but this time is going to be a bit different because it's going to be almost a bit more like a podcast format, because I'm not doing it by myself this time. I'm joined by my friend Nick on Discord, and we're both going to discuss this arc of One Piece, or at least the first half of this arc of One Piece, because Nick is a super big One Piece fan, and he's basically the entire reason I started in the first place, if I'm being honest. Like, I probably never would have even gave it a thought if it wasn't for you telling me to read it, because it occupied basically the same space for me as like Naruto or Bleach currently does. Like, oh, that's like an old series, it's too long for me to really want to get into. So if you weren't consistently telling me like, nah, you don't understand, it's like it's special, I never would have even started. Obviously, I'm pretty happy that I did know. Because yes, as we'll talk about, I'm really, really enjoying where this story is going. But I guess before we actually fully jump into the story stuff, if you just want to, I don't know, if you have anything to say about your history with One Piece, like how you got into it, how long you've been into it. I know you've read it multiple times, which is insane to me.
Yeah, you're gonna get to the point where it doesn't seem insane. But first of all, you're welcome for bothering you about One Piece. It's a big deal now, you know. You get to be like, I knew about it a little bit earlier than everyone on Netflix did, but I think the first time I really read One Piece and like got mad into it was in like 2016. I don't know. I think I was homeschooled that year, so it was a lot of time on all of the websites to read manga before I found the normal ways to read it. I think the first thing that I actually did with One Piece in any sense though, outside of just reading it, was like a game on the GameCube, like a fighting game that my mom had. So I was like, oh, funny stretch, man. And actually, the map that I would always play on was the map that is for this arc, actually, for Arlong Park. It was the most interesting one. Yeah.
Nice. So, needless to say, you've been there. You've known.
I've been there. No, actually, I was reading it right around the time that time skip happened, and it was like a fresh new deal.
See, I don't even know that. I don't know anything about that yet.
No, you won't. It's just most big animes like this have a time skip.
I mean, yeah.
So,
I usually assume there's going to be some kind of time skip in Shonen. But so I can't remember exactly when it was now, but I started reading it because of your suggestion. Started doing these videos, and we basically were just like, wait, why don't we just like we're already, I'm gonna be talking about it by myself, and then I'm also gonna be talking about it with you, and half the time you're probably gonna be in the chat like
this is
talking about it with me regardless. So like, why not just actually talk about it with the certified One Piece expert?
Only the one you know. The only one that is available on call for you.
I don't know. I feel like if there's anybody who knows, like, I don't know, you're pretty in there. I think you know quite a lot.
Yeah. I mean, in comparison to all of our friends, absolutely, but not in the YouTuber space.
Really?
The man for that is Tekking 101. I think.
Was that like One Piece Matt Pat or something?
Yeah. Yes. Except
Rest in peace.
He didn't invent the lore for it. It was actually there.
Okay. So all that being said, what we're discussing today is going to be the start of a new arc for me. And the arc is Arlong Park. So Arlong Park is spans chapters 69 through 95. So obviously, if you haven't read that, spoiler warning. But the way that I'm doing this, and the way I'm probably just going to start doing these from now on, is going to be slightly different than I have in the past, because in the past I've just done entire arcs, and in order to, really a couple of reasons. One, so I can get through it a bit faster, and two, so that I don't have as many notes and stuff to get through in a stream, which also means I can delve a little bit more into the detail of things, because trying to get through an entire arc in one stream, you really like kind of have to cut a lot out. Like, there are certain things that like, I could talk about that, but like, no, I gotta talk about the more important stuff, because I can't make it go on for 5 hours.
You understand the adaptation from from book to movie now.
Yeah. So to be able to talk about some of that smaller stuff, I just figured it might be smarter to go through slightly smaller chunks at a time. Not significantly smaller, but I'm kind of trying to keep it to around 10, probably around 10 chapters per session. Basically, my general rule of thumb is just going to be like, if it's a normal volume of manga, most of them, especially most of the One Piece ones, stick to like 8 chapters per volume. I'm going to discuss around 1 volume per session. But if they're like large volumes, something like the JoJo volumes or like deluxe ones, I might split each of those volumes into 2 manga club sessions. Yeah, just to make it easier on me, make it also less, I don't know, time consuming to figure out what needs to go in and what needs to stay unsaid. But Arlong Park specifically is going to be in 2 parts. This is the first part, where I'm going to be talking about chapters 69 through 81. And then in the next part of this is going to be after I finish chapters 82 through 95. At that point, I'll have finished the arc and can talk about that half of it and also kind of my overall thoughts. But for now, this is just the first half of it. And so, spoiler warning for anybody who hasn't read it, but also spoiler warning for me, because keep in mind, I haven't read this full arc yet. So nobody, if I don't mention something, if something happens later and it's like, wait, why didn't you tell me? It's because I haven't read the whole thing. Please don't tell me about it. So that being said, we could just jump into this, because knowing that there were going to be 2 of us for this, I didn't write a synopsis like I usually would. Usually I would write out a full synopsis just so I could kind of get everything out in a concise way before going into my deeper thoughts on it. But I wanted to keep this a bit more podcasty, a bit more chill, and so I don't have a synopsis. I just have my notes, and the way that I think we can do this is basically just go through chapter by chapter. I'll talk about some of the key points I have. You can add anything you want to. Just have a discussion about it. I don't know. I've never done something like this before, but
we gonna figure it out.
podcast shit.
Look at that.
So I guess let's just jump in and start at the beginning of the arc, which honestly is kind of a bombshell, because literally right after leaving Baratier, which, by the way, for anybody who forgot, the whole context for this arc being set up was that Nami stole the ship, the Going Merry? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, that's the name. It's kind of like the Zolo thing, where it's like, it's not
Right.
written like that, but we didn't
Right. That's what I've heard. So Nami stole that, and they wanted to find her. Johnny and Yosaku, who are Zoro's old teammates, found that she was probably in they probably knew where she was and started leading the crew there. And that was the setup for this. Very, I would say, simple setup compared to what would come. So the absolute lore bombshell that drops right at the beginning of this arc, literally chapter 69, first chapter, they're talking about the 7 warlords of the sea.
Yeah.
And they're just suddenly pirate adventures and whatever, and then suddenly they're like, okay, so here are the Lords of Cinder.
Yeah, that was actually something that I was reminded of, that's how they introduced it, because I don't know why, but I remembered it that in my brain that they introduced Mihawk under the pretense that he was a warlord already. I was like, oh, so wrong there. Might be.
Yeah, no, they So the thing is, they introduced Mihawk as being from the Grand Line. Like, oh, this is who you'll face. But they never specifically said he had this level of importance. Which, yeah, they say Mihawk is one of the 7 warlords. And something about these warlords that I think is interesting is it seems to be setting up a sort of a basis for heavy, like, deep-seated corruption in the whatever the government of this world is. Because they specifically talk about how these pirates literally have an agreement with the government where they're allowed to basically just do whatever they want with impunity if they just give away half of their treasure, and like they won't do anything about it. So that immediately stuck out to me as like, oh, there's like they're gonna delve deeper into that. That seems like a big point of, I don't know, big point of conflict that will probably eventually come up.
Yeah, if you spend a lot of your time thinking about just the Straw Hats, you kind of forget, like, pirates. They're pirates, you know. They're not always gonna do the morally high ground thing.
Well, yeah, but specifically the government aspect of it is like, like this isn't a world where it's like pirates against navy, good guys against bad guys. It's very like, oh, there's like weird little seedy deals and like different alliances happening and stuff. So I think that lends credence to this world being maybe a bit more complex. And in the same breath, they mention Jinbei, leader of the Fishman pirates, is also one of the 7 warlords, and apparently knew Arlong in some way. But I guess they don't roll together anymore. So
they don't really seem to be homies at this point. So yeah, no, they ain't messing with each other.
So Arlong's territory is called Arlong Park, and that's where they say that they think Nami is. So, well, because I guess in the previous arc, there was a point where Nami was looking at a wanted poster, and she seemed really, like, sort of frustrated, and like there was something more going on, and it turns out that she was looking at Arlong's wanted poster. I was originally thinking that, oh, maybe this is someone that she is fond of, but turns out it's kind of the opposite. She was basically looking at, like, her, I mean, kind of her captor on that wanted poster.
Yep.
So, I wrote down that Luffy just wasn't paying attention at all. He's just drawing fish at this point.
Oh, absolutely. Great. He's gonna take it as how he wants to.
Yeah, no matter what's happening, I like that Luffy is Luffy. We get a little bit of stuff about Arlong's crew, get a glimpse at some of the fishmen. Hachan, or he seems to sometimes be called Hachi, is like a weird octopus dude that seems to be like Arlong's first mate or some kind of close acquaintance in his crew. And just the fact that these people are literally fishmen, like they like not like they are hybrid fish and men, and they all have really fun designs. I think that's it's something that I've been wanting, is like just straight up like fantasy creature type stuff, because we've seen mostly humans with weird shapes, humans with weird abilities, but humans. And these are the first ones like, oh, there are other sentient humanoid creatures in this world. Arlong's emblem is this, I don't know what to call it besides kind of a wavering sun shape. And that's when we learn that Nami is in Arlong's crew, which it was a lot to take in. It was because her entire character premise was basically built around hating pirates.
Yeah, she's just not part of it. As soon as you see that tattoo, it's like on a little placard. She's an officer.
Right. Yeah, no, that's actually an important detail. Is like she's not just like some little lackey. She's like high ranking in this crew. So it makes it seem even more like confusing at first. You're like, okay, there has to be like something going on here. Like this is not consistent with her character. Mm-hmm. And when they eventually get there, this is where the crew gets completely split up. They find some of the fishmen, and Usopp and Johnny decide to tie up Zoro. I think this is the most insane decision ever. But they stop Zoro from interacting with the fishermen by tying him up.
It's an insane decision, but it's also insane that they could do that.
Right? Yeah, I feel like Zoro would just like absolutely body them, but they did it. And
he just didn't feel like moving. Let it happen around him.
And we see that Gosa Village is this place where Arlong rampaged through, like looks like a tornado went through. Buildings are upside down, everybody's gone, everything is destroyed. And I think that's a good clue into how powerful this guy is. This just seems like almost par for the course, which is terrifying. So Usopp and Johnny are exploring the town. They get chased, they escape, and this is where they meet Nojiko, who is, I would say, probably the most important addition to this arc so far as like narrative development, because it's almost immediately revealed that she's Nami's stepsister. And I felt vindicated when I heard that because I remember during the last arc, Nami said something about Belle-Mère, and I looked up the word Belle-Mère and learned that it meant stepmother.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. I like specifically didn't want to look up what it meant in One Piece, but just in terms of like etymology, yeah, it's like the French word for stepmother. So I was like, okay, so that might clue me into what kind of relationship this person has to Nami. So hearing Nojiko being Nami's stepsister definitely immediately made me be like, okay, so yeah, that was like an intentional thing. This is definitely like Nami's family here.
Also, when you were introduced to Nojiko, it's with the same kid that in the chapter previously Nami runs into, and she like beats this kid. She's like,
yes, yeah.
The kid's like trying to say like, oh, I'm gonna kill Arlong or something along those lines. Just like the fishermen pirates, they need to go. And Nami just looks at it, beats him with a stick. Wrong.
Which is interesting because Nami and Nojiko both like,
yeah,
scold him at the very least, like try to get him to reconsider. Nami basically beats him up. Nojiko tells him to just give up, basically, and they both just seem really, really intent on trying to get revenge on Arlong being a bad idea. Which again, just it does a really good job in these early chapters of getting you to feel intimidated by this like upcoming presence of Arlong. Like everybody seems scared of him, and everything that he touches seems to be in disarray, and it's just like immediately scary to even think about like what kind of fighter he must be.
Yeah, she's just like straight up, you don't want to smoke, kid.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to calm down. I also really like the quote that, I mean, I don't know if it's like technically a quote, I don't have it verbatim, but the kid's like, while she's telling the kid to just give up, then she says something along the lines of like, I knew a kid that had a life worse than yours, and they chose to live instead of die. So do what you will. And I'm just like, oh, that gives you a little like a question mark.
It's good you
What do
bring
we
that
mean
up
there?
because I forgot about that. That did happen, and that is a bit of foreshadowing. But by the time I learned, I wasn't really thinking about that anymore. So that's a good
Yeah,
reminder
there's
of
little
that.
droplets as you go through it.
Yeah. So, unsurprisingly, after this, don't know what else they expected. Zoro gets captured because he's literally roped up. Like, he can't do anything about it.
Handed to
so
them.
he's taken by himself to Arlong Park, while Johnny and Usopp are left on their own little adventure. So now the crew is completely broken up. It's like forming little sub crews, and I think I've heard this about One Piece before, that's like how they limit the power. It's just like, you gotta find a way to get them as individual fighters, because if they're all together, then they're too much to handle.
It's a smoke show.
So it's funny just immediately, like in this arc, seeing like, okay, they how do we make them so that they don't just walk in as a crew and like destroy Arlong?
Yeah, so they don't just show up and then leave in 10 minutes. So we need something to make them spend time here.
So, Chapter 71 is a notable one because this is where we get the return for a few chapters of Buggy's little cover art adventures. And I'm just going to skip through these before discussing the chapters in detail. The cover art specifically, Chapter 71, we see Buggy's detached body parts attacking his crew. The Chapter 72 cover art, there are people approaching, but we don't know who they are yet. In the Chapter 73 cover art, we see that it's Buggy. And he's back as his normal self, and he reaches his crew with Moji and Kabaji, and also the mysterious lady who he met previously, who seems to be after Luffy in some way. And they are now just together, and they've reunited with Buggy's crew. And in Chapter 75, this is kind of the last little piece we get, which just shows Buggy's crew back together again, basically just full force again. Buggy has returned to his crew and seems to be in charge of it again. So that's kind of like a little cliffhanger. That's the last part of that we get for now. So that's kind of just, I would say, confirmation that in some way Buggy is going to return to the story, because it would be questionable if it was just Buggy and he returned to his crew. You could consider that just kind of a little epilogue to the Buggy storyline, just showing you what happened after. But the fact that there's also this woman that we don't know, we haven't met, we don't know her name, we don't know anything about her, and they heavily foreshadowed that she wants something to do with Luffy, that tells me that Buggy isn't done here. So, I don't know where that's going to go. I don't know what's going to happen there, but clearly something. Now, as for the actual chapters, going back to Chapter 71, Gosa Village is in one place, and we get introduced to Cocoa Village, which is right nearby, and that one is the one that's Nami's hometown. Cocoa Village and Goso Village are part of the same island that Arlong Park is on. So it gives you a little bit of a breakdown of how that geography works, and the fact that they're all in pretty close proximity to each other, which explains why there's been so much interaction happening between the three. And then we come back to Zoro being taken to Arlong, where Nami is there. And we see a really fun and interesting interaction between Nami and Zoro, because obviously this is the first time Zoro is learning about Nami being in Arlong's crew. But he kind of immediately calls her bluff. He throws himself in the water, essentially tries to drown himself, or pretends to drown himself in a way. And Nami saves him. He definitely knew that was going to happen. Like I said, he called her bluff, and
and it wasn't just out of like Zoro. It wasn't out of Zoro's intuition though. Arlong throws in a line for just no reason. I guess to show that Nami is this evil witch. I think he's the first one that brings it up, because he says she forgave a parent's death for money, and then the next panel is Nami being like.
Right.
And then Zoro's like, yeah, I'll drown myself. Let's see what happens there.
Right. Yeah. So to Zoro and to the reader at this point, it's like super clear that she has ulterior motives. Like I feel like it's made very obvious that she's not just doing this because this is just her lifestyle. Like there's something else happening. But they keep you in the dark about it for a lot longer. But it was I don't know, you never lost sympathy for Nami, because it didn't let you have, other than the like dramatic reveal, it didn't let you have the notion for very long that she was just a villain now. It was pretty clear that she had her reasons.
Yeah, and the way that 71 opens, it's with Usopp in Nojiko's house, talking to her about Nami, and Nojiko's saying like this. I mean, it's like a really detached, like weird kind of. She's like being aloof about how she's telling Usopp like this stuff, and really, if someone lived through that and they were telling you that, you wouldn't have that attitude. So Usopp's like losing his mind, as like, why she's evil, she is a witch, and Nojiko's just like, yeah, she must be really mean. Like that's crazy. This whole time, it doesn't feel natural, the way that she just doesn't care about the crazy stuff that she's saying Nami has done.
None of it feels quite right. Something feels off the whole time. And pretty soon after is when the story talks about Arlong's men expecting payments. They call them tributes from the villagers. And every single villager is expected to pay their monthly tributes, or else Arlong will just destroy the village. And clearly that's what happened to Gosa. But it's just an example of his all or nothing kind of authoritarian rule over this place. It's a thing where he's just struck fear into everyone, because one little slip up will lead to the destruction of who knows how many people's lives. And his end goal is to apparently amass enough fortune to rule the East Blue. So power is the driving force. There's always like a moment in each of these new villains showing up where you learn what keeps them doing this. And for Arlong, it definitely seems to be purely power based. Like this is all function. He wants enough money so that he can be on top, or at least that's what it says. I do also feel, honestly, that there's part of it that is just the sadism aspect of it. Like it seems like Arlong enjoys it quite a bit.
Yeah, no,
torturing the villagers.
He's got fun. He has his fun.
Yeah. Now back at the jail where Nami took Zoro after pulling him out of the water, you know, she told Arlong that she was going to take him to the jail, but instead she cuts him loose when they're alone and tells him to escape and basically just uninvolve himself, just not even worry about any of this. And it's as if it wasn't clear enough before. Now it's like there's no doubt about it that she doesn't want to be a part of these pirates. Like, she needs this, and she doesn't even want anybody else to be involved in any of her piracy. Like, she got to do what she got to do. Whatever she's got to do is, which I know, but at this point you don't. Chapter 72 shows... Oh, right. The fact that Arlong is legitimately a fishman supremacist. Like, literally just straight up. He's just like, yeah, humans are like the inferior race. Like, 100%. Fishermen are superior. And he's very bold about it. But okay, got it. Fish Nazi. Yeah, he attacks Mr. Genzo, which is one of the villagers we meet, because he has a weapon. And it seems that Arlong is pretty adamant about the villagers not having weapons. I guess he wants to do as much as he can to prevent any kind of uprising or militia going against him. Usopp, this chapter, is very brave, but not very effective.
I would disagree with that a little bit. He wasn't effective in the way that he intended, but he does. He's the reason that like it didn't go worse, because he got them to all chase him.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? Okay,
Usopp kind of like fails upwards sometimes.
Yeah, he does. Okay, great word. He does. He stumbles his way to victory. But you know what? I respect him for trying so hard. Like,
yeah,
he's always gonna be there to try something, whatever that thing is. Arlong shows off how strong he is and just lifts a house. Just picks up a house with his hands because he's a little mad, and is like, okay, that's the level we're dealing with. Got it.
Lightweight.
We have ascended past like this guy who's pretty strong. We've gone on to like Dragon Ball Z level. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna lift a building like it is a dumbbell.
I'd say it's pretty effective too, to show like what Arlong means by being a fishman supremacist. Like, yeah. And no one we've seen, nobody's doing freak shit like that.
Nobody. Even
Krieg ain't Don Krieg. He ain't lifting nothing.
Yeah, Krieg, the black cat guy. None of them would have been able to do that. Nami comes back to the village in this chapter and says that she has 7 million more berries to earn out of an apparent total of 100 million. She's been trying to collect 100 million berries. Now, I don't know if you have this information on hand, but would you happen to know how many berries Arlong's poster said it was for?
No, I don't know how many it said it was for. With the level of strength the people are right now, I really don't think it'd be that high. I could be wrong. I could be so wrong, but it doesn't feel like we're at 100 million yet.
Okay, so from what I can tell, it looks like it's probably 20 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe it's 20 million. So Arlong seems like I mean, I know you say that like right now it's like that level isn't the level that it gets to, but out of everybody that we've met, like Arlong seems like a pretty big deal, pretty big threat.
By leagues, yeah.
Which means that 20 million berries should be implied to be like a good amount, which means Nami talking about 100 million is like an insane number, like that, incomprehensible.
Yeah. Who is she saying that to again? Is she talking to Nojiko?
I want to say she was just talking to herself, but it might have been to Nojiko.
Oh, I just went to the panel. Yeah, so she's at Belmare's grave.
The grave site.
And Nojiko just shows up.
Okay.
And like kind of eavesdrops for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I really, when I was reading this again, it made me think a little bit because, and you even have it in your notes, that she seems to expect Arlong to hold up his part of the deal, which is kind of like, it's weird. It's very disconnected because Nami is raised all of us by thieving, stealing from other people, and yet she still trusts that Arlong is going to keep his word.
Yeah.
So it's like she's becoming characterized as the ends justify the means very quickly.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's, I don't know. I don't know why she does that. I maybe it's just the desperation, like the pure desperation that, like, if she doesn't trust him, then what? Like,
yeah,
all of this has been for nothing, you know? So I guess in her mind, it might be like, well, all I can do is trust him. Like, that's literally the only option I have, because otherwise there's nothing I can do and we're screwed. But it is definitely like, you can see it coming from a mile away that something will happen. It just doesn't happen quite in the way that you might expect. Like a direct betrayal doesn't happen.
Oh, this is also the first confirmation we would get of Nojiko being aware that there's something more with Nami, because she says to her, "This whole town hates you," you know, which we come to find out later, whatever. But like, right now she's still running the facade on Nami. Yeah. Like, nobody likes you here, dog.
Mm-hmm. And it's where we get confirmation of the reason she's in Arlong's crew in the first place, which is that she wants to make enough money to buy the entire town from him.
Yep.
Because if she does that, then they no longer have to give up all of their earnings to Arlong. So the whole thing is, it's far-fetched, you know. It's like, as a reader, you can pretty much guarantee that Arlong is going to find a way to make sure that doesn't happen. But you can also understand how, as just like a desperate person watching her friends and family being exploited constantly, she would kind of accept that this is the only thing she can do to try and help. So, meanwhile, at Arlong Park, Zoro he seems to be having a fine time, honestly. Like, I don't know what else I expected. He's just kind of casually ruins the fishman's day, and he's ready to go. He's ready for action again. Like, took him no time.
Is this for 72 or 73? Because I just have something in 70 Zoro.
The end of 72.
Okay. The only thing for 73 I have is just another installment of Zoro always being lost meme.
I've heard of that. I've definitely heard people joking about that. If that actually, like, continues to be a thing, that's very funny.
I got curious about it when I read it again. Because like the meme is he's lost, but it's not usually that he's straight up lost and doesn't know where he is. It's usually that he's just running about. But regardless, me seeing that again, I was like, I wonder when the first time that is. And I looked it up. It's literally like the first time him and Luffy are on the boat and they're swimming away, and he says, "I don't know, I just got lost from I couldn't find my island, my home island, so I started hunting pirates to make money."
Whole life, he just hasn't known where he's going.
He became known as like this terrifying bounty hunter simply because he got lost and needed rent. Essentially,
Since the day he was born, he's just been walking in directions.
Yep.
So chapter 73 is where the giant owl sea creature attacks, and that's something that I believe it was last installment I was actually talking about I would be interested in seeing more of, because we have seen many humanoids but not a whole lot of giant weird sea creatures. And I mean, in reality there's already like insanely weird sea creatures that exist. So in a fantastical world like One Piece, I knew there had to be like some kind of just wacky creatures that exist in the ocean. So it's nice to see those every once in a while. Like, it's nothing it's nothing huge, but it's just like, it's nice to see that the whole world, whether it's humans or animals, is consistently weird.
Of course.
I
like that we get to see that Sanji, I don't want to say one hits this thing, but in case anybody needs a reminder that Sanji's a heavy hitter. Like, they're all stressing about it, Sanji just kicks this dude.
Yeah, and he does a named attack. He called it the Collier Coup. So I guess his move names have French names.
Of course, look at his eyes. He's got to have French stuff.
Yeah,
he smokes cigarettes.
Sanji like implied to be French?
I believe so, yes.
Like, because I've just been, I don't know, assuming he has like a sort of American accent, but like,
oh no,
does he have like a French accent? Because it's really funny to think about.
Like with the voice acting, I think he's just like a normal man, but I feel like he does. I feel like he slurs at least a little bit into it. That's how I read it.
That's how I started. After this, I was like, wait a minute, Sanji might be French.
No, I wouldn't want to send it to you because it's just characters that you haven't met yet. But Oda has like like an implied ethnicity thing for a bunch of characters. It just shows like the flags and stuff. It's like Luffy is presumed Brazilian, I believe.
Yeah, I've seen some of those before. I think it was when the live action was coming out, actually, because a lot of people were talking about like.
Yeah, they were arguing about it.
So Hachi, the octopus man, mistakes Zoro as a guest. And he takes him to Cocoa Village.
Hachi's great.
I think he's like so funny. I genuinely love him. Himbo.
Yeah, a very simple way to put it.
So Arlong finds his dead crewmates in the meantime, and something that surprised me actually is that he seemed genuinely upset about it. Like, he called them something like fallen brothers or something like that, and I just kind of didn't expect Arlong to care about anybody at all. So to hear him get visibly upset about his men dying, it could just be because he has less people to attack with, but like, I don't know, he seemed.
It also probably plays a part in his pride too, because as far as we know as readers, there's not been a person that can murk these fishmen. And then he just goes on a quick trip and comes back. What?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's true as well.
And like, it's not just Arlong that's so crazy strong in comparison. Like, all fishermen do have a lot of these capabilities. Arlong just happens to be better than them. So it's like Zoro. Well, it's like with the Sanji thing. If you didn't remember that they were beasts, Zoro, do not forget.
Yeah. After this, Usopp, pretty unsurprisingly, is captured. The fishmen doubt Nami's allegiance, but of course she denies it. She reaffirms that she's part of their crew. And Arlong says, pretty much specifically to test Nami's reaction to it, that they're gonna get rid of Usopp and Zoro. And Nami pretty successfully keeps up the illusion that she doesn't care.
Usopp did his flip-flopping of saying, if you kill me, Zoro will come and kill you. If you don't kill me, he will... What works out in my way that I don't die?
Again, stumbling his way to victory. Just trying stuff. He just tries stuff, and he just throws stuff at the wall, and whatever sticks, he's like, okay, good. Yeah, that's what I meant to do.
Of course. It was a great plan.
Luffy and Sanji take control of the cow creature, and they're using it like a mount to reach Nami and Usopp. Whereas Zoro is still just by himself. He's looking around. In chapter 74, Usopp calls Nami out, and Nami says that she only cares about the money. Lies, I feel like. But in this circumstance, not really lies, obviously, since she's literally doing this for the sole purpose of getting money. But, you know, overall, she kind of tries to portray herself as like, no, I don't actually care about people. And you're like, come on, Nami, yes you do. Yeah, you clearly do. Usopp actually, for once, has a plan that works. Where he escapes with a smoke bomb, but then he's cut off because Nami stabs him, or it looks like she stabs him. There was no part of me that called that this was fake at the time. Like, I did not. I just thought that she actually stabbed him.
No, there wasn't any. Yeah,
and there was genuinely a part of my mind that was like, maybe she's not bluffing. Like, wait a minute. Maybe she actually, like, does not care about these people. She's truly just, like, fully in. I was questioning, because saying things is one thing, but I was like, if she actually just killed Usopp, like, I mean, I knew she didn't kill him because he's a main character, but I was like, if she actually, like, seriously just injured Usopp, like, with no hesitation, like, okay, maybe she is actually, like, a bloodthirsty, like, uncaring pirate.
Yeah, another way it could be framed is that she was just trying to be nice and get them out of harm's way, but now they're just really messing up her plans because they're doubting her allegiance.
Yeah.
And all this work she's supposed to. Now you could think of it, she's over it now. She can't be nice anymore to them.
Yeah, because the whole time she really has been doing damage control, where she's just like, just please, just do not get involved. Like, just go away.
I also thought of it as like kind of a question in the back of my head. It's just like, okay, so she's at 93 mil. Why is she putting in so much effort to try and damage control this with specifically them? Because you would imagine the amount of people that she's robbed and everything. You're telling me none of them have ever followed her back? Is she that good at it? Why is she at some point seemingly putting her neck out for these people? What makes them different?
Yeah, they don't make that super clear, but that is like a question. Like,
no, I don't know.
Maybe
ideas.
She really is just that good at it. But
I have ideas, but it's not for this part of the arc yet.
This is the part where we see Nami's treasure map for the first time. It's a map of Cocoa Village, and we don't really know what that means at this point, but it has a big X on it. What I thought at first was the X was the site of Belmare's grave, because we hadn't even met Belmare at this point or anything, but I just assumed, I just kind of made my best guess that like that might be what it was, but obviously I was wrong about that. She seems pretty flustered that Arlong's crew found it, which immediately raises the question of like, why does this matter? What is this? What is this map? What's going on here? Luffy, Osaku, and Sanji crash into the island. They can't control the cow creature, and they completely crash into the island, where Zoro hears it from a distance and is completely unaware it's them. none of them like know where each other are. They're just all none the wiser, all going on their own little adventures. Luffy and the rest of the group get like sprung up into the air and reunited with Zoro after slamming into him, like just destroying him.
I thought your notes for this chapter like super, got everything, so I didn't have anything to add except for literally just that panel where they like crash into Zoro. They were like, it seemed like they were like kind of getting a lot of turbulence, hitting a bunch of things. Nothing destroyed it except for Zoro's body, though. Like in that panel, it's in just pieces. It completely shattered. The only thing that it signifies that they hit is Zoro. He's a wall.
Made of concrete. So Johnny tells the crew that Nami killed Usopp because he saw the same thing that we saw, and they're pretty shocked about it. The village suddenly sees that a Navy ship is coming in, which they assume is to save them, but Arlong's crew swiftly defeats them. They get sunk in a matter of like 30 seconds. It's a super effective way of showing just how much of a stronghold Arlong's crew has on this island, because it seems that, I mean, there's no saving them. Like, Arlong literally eats a cannonball that is fired at him. And then we see Hachi and some other of Arlong's best crew members, Chu, which is a kisser fishman, and Kurubi, which is a ray fishman. Those are the ones who found Nami. That's the one who found Nami's map, and you see them just systematically destroy any attempts to save these villagers. And Nojiko explains that that's just that's how life is here. Like, Arlong is an inescapable force, and it really drills in the hopelessness of the situation. Arlong tells his crew, now this is interesting, he tells his crew he'd die before breaking his word, which seems off. Like, something seems off even when he's directly saying that. So it's still not like, it's still pretty obvious that he's gonna find some way to break it. But from everything that he's saying, even to his own crew, which you would expect him to be honest with them, he's like, no, I would never break my word. So it does call into question what's gonna happen of Nami's deal, because he seems pretty adamant that he's gonna hold up his end. Where is it? Where am I? I lost my place. Luffy is absolutely furious at Johnny for implying that Nami would ever betray them. And it's funny to me that he's like, he doesn't even really know Nami that well, but he's just so insistent that, like, no, she's our crew member. Like, she would not do that. And
Luffy's an empath. He knows.
No, genuinely, like, he seems to have this innate sense of just like who's good in the world. Like, he very quickly trusts people, but he's usually right.
Yeah.
When he does so. But as he's denying this, Nami shows up and confronts the crew. She's steadfast in her allegiance to Arlong and basically just tells them to leave completely, and that they shouldn't get involved, as she's been telling to everyone individually this whole time. But Luffy is very stubborn about it. He says he will not leave, which makes Nami extremely angry. Meanwhile, though, Johnny and Yosaku stay behind, while the others move along and keep looking for Usopp and Arlong. That's when we see that Usopp is alive.
Yeah.
And the revelation is that Nami stabbed her own hand just to make it look like she killed him. Which literally is the hardest confirmation possible that she's bluffing. Like, you don't do that if you don't care about that person.
She direct physical harm to herself to help the the coward of the crew.
So that's like basically hard confirmation. Like, she doesn't want to hurt these people. She does not only care about the money. She cares about these crew members. Like, she's the mixed crew members. But the thing about it is that she clearly might not even accept that herself. Like, she might herself think that she doesn't care as much as she does. And I don't think she wants to accept that. Usopp finally reunites with the crew. And Zoro and Sanji immediately hurt him while they're arguing with each other. This guy they've been searching for this whole time, and they immediately just, like, give him some bruises.
Yeah, I literally have that in my notes. It's just the line, he's alive. And I think Zoro saying that to Sanji, like, they didn't both just like, smashing between their weapon.
Nami returns to Nojiko's to try to get some rest, where Nojiko comes in, and we see that Nami doesn't even really open up to Nojiko. Like, she doesn't even let her true feelings out to her own stepsister. Especially because Nojiko doesn't even know the significance of this map. Or at least she doesn't seem to. And this is the first time that Nojiko says the phrase, friends is a painful word for Nami, which we hear again later. But this is the first time that Nojiko says it.
I also think it's like, it's really interesting that even though Nami's like harboring this secret that she's, that she presumably thinks is a secret to everybody else, she can't pretend with Nojiko. If she doesn't want to talk to her about things, she just will not. She's not trying to hide anything.
Yeah.
Like, she's still going to her sister when she is down, and Nojiko is not surprised. She's just like, oh, you're here and you're breaking stuff. Okay. You want to talk about it? No? Alright.
Yeah, she seems pretty clued in. Pretty, like, accepting of the situation.
It's probably happened before, in some degree.
It's probably happened before, and Nojiko most likely just kind of, I guess, like Nami is doing with the crew, like, kind of damage control, where it's just like, it's what has to happen. It is what it is. Like, you're gonna, I just have to accept that you are sometimes going to show up in my house and, like, throw a tantrum. Nojiko also tells the crew to leave at this point and says that she'll explain everything as long as they just get out of here. But they refuse to, obviously. And this is when a Navy ship lands on the island, and someone named Captain Nezumi says that he's searching for Nami. And that's the cliffhanger that chapter leaves you on, where in the next chapter, 77, Luffy says he just doesn't care about Nami's backstory. He's like, I don't care what's going on. I don't care. You don't have to explain anything. I'm gonna save her. But Nojiko still explains to at least Sanji, Zoro, and Usopp, who...
Well, Zoro was asleep.
Zoro was asleep, that's right. But Sanji and Usopp were listening.
Yeah,
at the
I'm
very
sure someone
least.
filled him in when he woke up.
Yeah. We also see that Nami, right before we go into a flashback, a long flashback, by the way, right before that, Nami mentions wanting to bring the village back to its former glory with the tangerine groves that it used to have, which turns out to be, I think, a through line through the rest of these chapters. Is the tangerines are sort of a
Absolutely.
symbol of the peace and purity that the village used to have. So yeah, this is where we start on flashback and see Belmare, who is unsurprisingly Nami and Nojiko's foster mother. It isn't quite clear at this point, or I guess, so we know that she's their foster mother, but we don't know why she took them in at this very moment. She's super confident, very upfront, very sort of charismatic, so you can immediately see where Nami got some of her personality quirks. And with the girls, she seems fair, but you know, also fairly blunt with rules and with discipline. She's very open with them. She's very kind of lenient with a lot of things, but she also tells them exactly what needs to be said, I guess. She seems like a cool person, basically.
The hard opening to this backstory is her like scolding Nami.
Yeah.
Which is just like, okay, we're gonna. Okay, I see what happened. If she didn't learn, she'd still be doing it. But for good.
Yeah. You know what isn't cool? Is that whack ass haircut.
I saw it in your notes.
So
I mean, she was poor. She did what she could.
You know what?
What are you, fat?
All right.
Please? Wow.
Maybe. I might be. This might turn me into one. She got the misfits going on.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, Nami has always wanted to navigate, it seems, because even as a kid, she wanted to navigate around the whole sea and map it all out. And would start with a map of the town, which
This is what I meant with
the one that she still has.
Yeah. But this is what I meant with the how I be late on the argument, like why I think Luffy and everybody else was different. Because presumably spending time with them, going through with these antics, everybody might have spewed out their dream at one point or another, and all of their dreams align with the same dream that Nami had as a child before she wanted to do what she's trying to do now with getting her village back. She wanted to make a map of the whole sea and everything.
Yeah.
So now we've got someone, King of Pirates, greatest swordsman, brave warrior, all blue.
Yeah, but they all share the same actual mechanics of like, I need to find a way to get everywhere in the world. So in a way, they're all the same dream, but just with different branches at the end. Speaking of poor, yeah, this is where we kind of learn. Yeah, they don't have too much. Belmare doesn't even eat sometimes, just to let the kids eat. She seems to give up a lot for their happiness, and unfortunately, kids being kids, Nami and Nojiko bicker sometimes, and Nami goes a little far, calls her and Nojiko not real sisters, and Belmare just straight up smacks Nami. It's maybe a little far, but
it was a different time.
Different time, different universe. But it definitely drives home that Belmare does not like that notion. Like, something about their relationship makes Belmare extremely, like, on edge about that statement. She does not like her saying that at all. Like not even a question, right? So it does make that very clear. But Nami, I mean, you see the reason behind it right away, and you see this really complex attitude that I think is like, it feels very real, because she talks about having guilt about how poor they are, because she feels guilty that her and Nojiko have to, like, because they exist, Belmare has to give up so much. But then in the same, in the same dialogue, she mentions just wishing that she had a better life, that she was found by someone richer than Belmare. And I think that's so multi-layered, because on one end, in just the purely selfish, childish way, she's like, man, I wish I had a better life, like I wish things were better for me. But then there's also a layer underneath that where she's like, I wish things were better for you. I think if things were different for me, if I was not found by you, things would also be better for you as not being my mother. So it's these multi-layered statements that make Nami and her relationship with her family and just this part of the story feel a lot more real and a lot more understandable, I think.
She is also either 9 or 10. I think 9.
Something like that.
But like that's a lot for a 9-year-old.
It is. But this situation is a lot for a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Nami runs away then, and Genzo takes us into a flashback inside the flashback because she tells Nami about how Belmare first found the girls, which was that apparently Belmare almost died in battle. One little thing is he doesn't say which battle. He doesn't say if this is some kind of war or something. It looks like they're on some kind of like full battlefield. Like it looks like this was a war that was going on. But I don't think they clarify. So that makes me curious about that. But Nami was just a tiny, tiny baby. Nojiko was 3 at the time. And Belmare found them together. And something really touching is that they both kind of they're miserable. Like they're clearly miserable. But Nami, they say, doesn't know what's going on despite everything happening, and she still has some amount of joy, and it kind of radiates out to them. And because of that, Belmare pushes through, decides she wants to live, and comes back to the village to raise the girls together.
I also have no idea, but I don't know if Nojiko knew Nami's name, because Nami ended up in Nojiko's arms. But I don't know if Belmare named Nami, or if it was a previous
interesting
thing.
I didn't even think about that. I wonder. Is there a meaning for the name Nami that you know of?
No, not that I'm aware of.
It would be interesting to know if there's some kind of.
I mean, I assume Nojiko was actually her name, because she's 3, but
yeah, she would know
her name. So.
But yeah, it I don't know, it choked me up a little bit, because it was oh man, that's why Belmare got so upset about Nami saying that, because Belmare and Nojiko both essentially raised Nami since she was literally an infant, and so she a family can't be more real than that. And even more than that, from that battlefield scene, it seems like Nami basically gave the both of them a reason to go on. She is the part of the reason that they are still living. So it was, yeah, whew. A lot to think about. And unfortunately, right after that is when we see the moment that Arlong comes along to the village to just declare it as his own. Which leads into the scene where Arlong starts making villagers pay 100,000 berries each, or 50,000 for kids. Very important detail. 100,000 for adults, 50,000 for kids. But Arlong's crew notices Belmer's house and go to collect from her, where Nami and Nojiko try to rush back to her house after, having the whole argument, but it's too late by this point. Arlong's crew is already there. They're already collecting the money. Belmer tries to fight, but the fishmen are just way too strong and overpower her, and we learn that Belmer only has 100,000 berries. She only has enough to pay for herself. And it's decided that she can pay for herself, and since there's technically no proof of the children being hers, they can live, but only if they leave the island forever. And Belmer decides that she can't bring herself to do that. She cannot bring herself to say that Nami and Nojiko aren't her own children. Calling back to earlier where Nami said the opposite, that Nojiko wasn't her real sister, and this is confirmation of just how deeply Belmer feels the opposite, where she can't even pretend. She admits that Nami and Nojiko are hers, and because of that, she doesn't have enough for herself, because she uses the 100,000 to pay 50,000 for each of them. And Genzo and the village doctor try to negotiate, and Nami and Nojiko are devastated. Everybody is going against this, but Belmer is absolutely sure of this decision, and that's when Belmer tells Nami and Nojiko that they are as much her children as if she gave birth to them. And Nami profusely apologizes for what she said. Belmer apologizes for not being able to provide more, and then just totally accepting her fate, she tells the girls that she loves them, and we hear Arlong fire 3 shots at her. And that's the end of the chapter.
Kind of wild that nobody covered the kid's eyes.
Yeah.
I read that, I was like, all these adults standing there. At least don't let them see it.
Right.
My God.
Yeah, that chapter got me, dude. That one got me good. It was rough. That was a rough read.
Yeah, that found family's always gonna go hard for me.
The story's gotten me emotional before, but I think this was the most intense time, because there's just so many layers to it. There's the fact that they're all apologizing to each other, and they're not in Belmer's last moments, as if they all felt burdens on one another. And they all cared so deeply about being the best they could for each other and doing the best that they could. And Nami having to live with one of her last interactions being that fight, and just so many things about it. Just, dude, I was at work when I read this.
Oh,
I was just tearing up.
Thing dinging to go make the finish.
Yeah,
I can't.
It was. It was. Yeah, this was a good one. I think this is where it was solidified for me. my opinions of this being my favorite arc narratively so far, which I'll talk about later in my sort of wrapping up thoughts. But moving forward into chapter 79, we see something that Belmare said to the girls, which was that as long as they learned to live and survive, that things would eventually, at some point, be good. Eventually. As long as you just live and just stick with it long enough. And so they leave us with that. And then after Belmare dies, the pirates find Nami's map, find out they're actually super good. Like, she's actually really good at making maps.
Which is actually goated.
So that's when they capture her. And they plan to make her the navigator. Where we see Genzo. I didn't really mention it earlier, but he has lots of scars all over him. And we see that this is how he got his scars, because he literally gets attacked trying to save Nami. But after a while, Nami returns to the village, but this time she has the tattoo. And she announces to all of them that she's part of their crew now, which Genzo thinks is foolish and tells her to leave the village forever. They seem really, really upset about it. Nojiko meets Nami at Belmare's grave, where Nami tells her of her plan to earn 100 million berries to buy the village. Meaning that Nojiko has known this entire time, because she basically immediately told her. And Nojiko is super skeptical of the plan, but Nami is not gonna take no for an answer. She remembers what Belmare said about just staying alive, and she decided to stay alive, and whatever it takes, she's gonna fight for her village.
She said, I think it was in this chapter, she said that she's never gonna... She said, like, I'm done crying about it.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know how much time has passed between when she was captured till when she came back with the tattoo. But, I think from the fight onwards, anytime you see, like, baby Nami in a flashback, she is wearing the same, like, dress hand-me-down that started the fight with Nojiko. Until it's presumably, like, too ripped up or it just doesn't fit her anymore.
Yeah.
But she has money. She shows that she's getting money, and she'll, she could probably get a different, clothes if she wanted to. And Nojiko's wearing different stuff, obviously, but just, like, that's nice. To, like, and like, that's the one thing that she could hold on to. That Belmare had given her.
Yeah. That's good catch there. So finally in these last two chapters, we're back out of the flashback. I forgot we were in a flashback. By this point I was just like, yeah, I'm just reading, and then they got back out of the flashback. I was like, oh right, Nojiko was telling this story to the guy. I like completely forgot what was happening in the current world. But Nojiko finishes telling all of this to the crew. I don't know how she explains some of this stuff, but she finishes telling them and says not to help, not to worry, because it'll just draw attention and some suspicion, and they risk completely ruining what Nami has been working towards. And this is when, back at Nami's old house, the Navy officer that we saw before makes his way there with his men, and they accuse her of thievery from pirates and imply that Arlong won't hurt them if they take Nami in and seize all of her treasure. So Nami yells at them, obviously, criticizes the government, because she says, like, why are you focusing on a petty thief when Arlong is right there and, like, terrorizing this village and being like the most evil person ever. Like what kind of navy does this? Like what is wrong with this establishment?
It's
basically.
so absolutely ridiculous to think of that happening. Like, what do you mean? Excuse me.
Genzo is here now, and he admits that the whole village knew what she was doing, which was definitely that was a lot to be dropped. That was like, oh yeah, they all knew what she was doing, and they didn't tell her ever because they just didn't want her to feel like she had to. So this was another thing that had me very emotional. It's just like, oh my god, not only does Nami's family care for her, this entire village is like so caring of her that they were willing to collectively keep up this charade for how many years now, just so that they didn't risk making her feel like she had to like do all of this just for them. Like they were willing to. They didn't want her to do this, you know. They were fine with existing under Arlong if it meant that they didn't have to essentially sacrifice one of their village's children to be saved.
Yeah, and in theory, Nami could have gotten away rather easy.
Yeah,
like with how often she would go out and steal stuff and make the maps of it, and apparently she's really good at slipping away. So like, could have been gone.
So this entire village is like very close knit. Like they all care about each other as family, basically, because they're so much is being done to care for one another in this village. It's very, very like eye-opening in that moment for me specifically, where I was just like, oh, this is more than just like a village where they kind of know each other. Like they care for Nami as Bellamere would have, basically. So that's when Nami catches on to the fact that this has to be a setup from Arlong. She knows it has to be. She rushes to him completely enraged, and surprising to me, she like grabs him by his shirt. She's not messing around. Like she does not even care about how scary he is. She grabs him. She like is in his face, and she's like, dude, you better not be messing with me right now.
Yeah, well, the military guy said like, we think it might be about 100 million berries, and then she's like,
yeah.
Oh, how did you know? Oh, okay. Now, all right. Fuck this. I'm gonna.
Because who else would have known that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even mention, by the way, that before she ran to Arlong, she was yelling at Luffy because he was trying to help and saying like she didn't want him to do anything. She didn't want him to have anything to do with it. She pushes him to the ground.
Oh, he showed up at the wrong time. She was on a mission at that point.
Yeah, Luffy seems... I wrote down, Luffy seems only slightly disgruntled by all of this.
Yeah.
He's like, I think he says literally something like, what's her problem? Like, he's like, man, I'm just trying to... Jeez.
No, like how we were talking about Nojiko earlier, just being like, it's weird how like casually she's saying all these crazy things or like dealing with her life right now. That's how Luffy just actually is. Yeah, a lot of the time.
So Nami runs to Arlong, accuses him of lying. Arlong grabs her face and keeps insisting, like, no, I never lied. I didn't break any promise. Because technically his promise was that if she got the money, he would sell the village to her. And he said, I never broke that promise. Like, you get me that money and I'll sell you the village. What lie did I tell? and she's obviously just sobbing at this point because she realized she's been completely played.
First time in 8 years, because she's 18 now.
Yeah. And then in the final chapter, the Navy makes off with apparently 30% of her money. I thought that was weird. I don't know why they took like such a specific amount.
Oh, I'm assuming it was just Arlong was like, you can have this much.
Just the rest goes to Arlong, I guess.
Yeah.
Arlong's crew taunts Nami, and she runs back to the village to tell them not to fight. Insane. She's like, yeah, no, I'll just do it again. I'll just try again. Whatever. I get it a little bit. Over again.
I get it a bit just from the sense of like, okay, well now I'm bigger now, and I got the experience.
Yeah.
So,
but like, the
obviously
idea
it's a lost cause.
The idea that this just wouldn't happen again in some capacity.
Yeah.
Like, come on, it's not gonna happen.
She's going through the 7 stages of grief, and she's in denial right now.
Basically. And the villagers at this point are they're done with the charade. They start kind of getting together to go and fight Arlong because they decide that they'd rather die fighting than stay under Arlong for any longer and make Nami do any of that again. They are done playing games. They want to just fight it out, and if they die, they die, and at least they die with honor, basically. Where after they leave, this was also a really poignant moment because Nami takes a knife and literally just starts mutilating her arm where the tattoo is, trying to like rip it out. She like is so disgusted by what Arlong did and the idea of being associated with them that she like it's crazy.
It's extremely intense.
It is. Because it's very like they're very bloody panels. Like it makes it clear how viciously she's ripping this tattoo apart because she just can't stand that it's there.
You also have to think about how tired of pretending she has to be just as a human being.
Yeah.
She's tired of she's pretending that she's loyal to Arlong this whole time, but to get the money for that, she's pretending to be loyal to all these pirate crews, and then she has to pretend to not care about all of the people that she grew up around, that she's putting.
And
all
now
of
she knows
into.
Not only that Arlong was lying and playing her the whole time, but also that her village knew the whole time, and so it probably feels like this entire set of years has just been for like literally for nothing, like literally just a waste of her time, and probably like she probably feels kind of like a fool, like so that happens until until Luffy comes up and stops her from doing it, and Nami for a while continues how she was before, telling Luffy to just get off the island, to just leave her alone, not get involved. But Luffy doesn't leave, and eventually Nami, just through tears, just very sort of hesitantly tells him to help. That's all she says. She says, Luffy, help. And Luffy, knowing that this was going to happen, presumably, he's like, all right, ready to go. Let's go. he gets the rest of the crew. He's like, all right, guys, she's finally accepting our help. Let's do this.
And the whole time, he's basically just waiting for permission.
Basically, yeah. Which is funny because that's kind of the same way he operates when he's getting new crew members. Is he's like,
I'll bother you until you say yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna add you to my crew until you officially like are down for it. But I'm also not gonna leave you alone until you're down for it.
Mm-hmm. It's also just such a extreme like point of importance to me. How Luffy knows nothing. Now this is something the live action ruined. Luffy is told by Nojiko in that, but I hated that so much because it was so important to me that Luffy didn't care. Anytime somebody tried to offer him information, he left. He didn't care.
Yeah.
He literally saw Nami for who she was, knew that there was something else going on, did not believe any of this BS, and he just is consistent every time.
Yeah.
And just says, I'll be there. I'm not leaving. Get over it. I'm just going to hang out here then.
Yeah.
And then he just happens to be right place, right time. He's there.
It goes back to that sort of intuition he has for, like, immediately recognizing good people, where, like, he had already decided in his mind, like, I'm going to help this woman, and I'm going to befriend her, and she's going to be in my crew, and there's no amount of backstories, good or bad, that is going to change that. Like, my mind is set. I don't need any more reason. I don't need any more explaining. I am, like, my mind is made up.
That is my crewmate.
Yeah. So I think I saw this shot in the trailer for the live action, which I didn't know what it was at the time, but now I can see, like, this very iconic set of panels where before Luffy finally leaves, he walks up to Nami and just places his hat on her head. And at this moment, Nami remembers Luffy talking about how important his hat was to him, and how it's his treasure is what he called it. And she just seems really touched by the gesture. And I think I'll get to it in a second, actually, because the chapter finally ends with Luffy literally, like, sprinting towards Arlong Park, and he busts through the door, and he's like, "Hey, who's Arlong? I'm coming for you."
Yep.
That's where it ends. That's where it leaves off. I feel like that was a perfect way to leave it off, because, like, now next time it's like, okay, everybody's ready for battle. This is gonna be the climax of it. We've gotten all the setup. Now we get the payoff. But excellent way to leave me waiting for the next half of the arc. So my sort of final thoughts on this arc, I guess. So, or this half of the arc, because obviously, like I said before, I have the other half of this arc to get through. But for now, how I'm feeling about this, sort of based on that, the scene with the hat, I basically think that, I don't know, I just get the general idea that Luffy and Nami in these past couple chapters seem to maybe be coming to a better understanding of each other, and especially on Nami's end. I think Nami is really starting to see Luffy for who he is, and starting to understand some of his motivations and some of the things that he does from, like, in a way that matches her experiences, and probably empathizing with him a lot more because of that, which I think is good, because I think that'll deepen sort of their bond going forward.
Yeah, he probably has some of the, like, obviously it wouldn't be like the same type of familial relation, but, like, just the unwavering, I am with you, despite what you are going to say to try and hurt me with Bellemere, in the same way where she couldn't deny her daughters. Luffy will not. He wasn't like any of the other Straw at any point where it was like, oh, she's bad, she's evil, she's betrayed us. No, I don't care.
Yeah, not even once. He didn't even entertain the thought of it.
Nope. And with the hat too, I'm not gonna try and, like, cite my sources and tell you which arc and what times it happens, but Nami's been there for most of the times that Luffy freaks out about his hat. Like, she tries to take it from him at some point, he gets mad, he uses a stretchy arm, gets it
no,
back.
that's the thing that she, like, realizes. It shows a panel of her remembering a time where he's like, don't touch my hat, this hat is my treasure. And so she's like, oh, this means something.
Yeah, like every time he wakes up from a fight that he passed out over, where's my hat?
So, the most like basic way to put it is, wow, I thought this was a wonderful set of chapters. I think that this is the most emotional that One Piece has been thus far, like the most emotionally resonant. I think the storytelling that it's doing is just fantastic, and the way that it's specifically developing Nami, but in a way that also helps the way we see the crew as a whole, and the way they interact with each other is brilliant. This isn't a complaint, but the one thing that I made note of, which I think I mentioned to you before, is that this arc is so far a bit less sort of bombastic, a bit less big and theatrical than Baratier was. Baratier was very fun and very chaotic and fast-paced. This one takes a bit of a step back. But
there's more small moments, like Usopp getting his face smashed on both sides.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, that's not a complaint, because it trades that for just really, really compelling storytelling.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be a little bit dissonant if they tried to like have like a Buggy the Clown showing up too.
Yeah, no, like I said, just kind of an observation of how these two feel different so far. But I don't think either is better or worse for it. I think it's just two different ways of portraying a part of a story.
Yeah.
And actually good, because I like that it differentiates the feeling and vibe of the arc. Like, it feels like a different arc for sure now.
Yeah, there's a big shift in how you like view it. This is just why with the whole meme of One Piece gets good at this and how far in. This is the arc. If you get here and you're not rocking with it, get off the ship. You're wasting your time. And you haven't even gotten the payoff really of it yet. You've gotten the emotional trauma. You have not seen how this problem is handled.
That's true.
Which I will say, I feel like people don't appreciate the payoff as much as they should. But I won't go into that as much. But just people mostly talk about the, like, the build-up, what you have just read. And then the afterward, you're like, eh. But there's some big moments there for me, personally.
So, I think I mentioned also that this whole experience kind of makes the crew's bond feel more real, because I think it's pretty much the harshest thing they've been through together, and they've all had opportunities to leave at basically any point, but they've all decided to stay and try their best to help each other and to help Nami.
Yeah, that reminded me. Johnny and Yosaku, they were already at the doors for Arlong Park when the village people came. They're like, hold up, we're waiting. We're waiting for someone that's gonna actually deal with it.
Yeah.
So, like, they even said they were gonna leave. Found out, we were wrong. Okay, well, we're just gonna go make sure nobody gets there, except for like Luffy and Zoro.
And speaking of which, it actually. The moment where Luffy shows up, I, like, in my head could imagine a really, really funny way of that playing out, because you see a shot from inside Arlong Park where the door is closed, and you see a speech bubble outside of either Johnny or Yosaku being like, "Oh, hi, brother Luffy," and then the next panel is Luffy busting through the door, and so I could just imagine, like, just like muffled from the outside, from like Arlong's perspective, just like tapping of the feet, just like approaching slowly and like, "Oh, hi, brother." It's like butts.
Just those little like flip flops, getting closer.
Yeah. Oh, hey, brother, what's going on?
Nice.
It's so funny to me.
Yeah. I feel like Hachi is also very good for comedic relief. He's great. Just
he definitely was. He definitely
just being in a taxi for Zoro.
took the edge off some of these scenes, I would say.
Yeah, he was needed. Because at one point you get emotionally exhausted with his backstory.
And the last thing I really have written down is that a through line so far is Nami's reluctance to receive support. And kind of, not even in this arc, but in all of One Piece so far, she has a kind of emotionally distant attitude. She kind of portrays this, I guess, a front of confidence and of just being sure of herself. But we've kind of learned at this point that it's like that speaks to a very damaged person. She really craves connection. She craves support, but I think just because of her trauma, she is so reluctant to admit that even to herself, which is why I think just the simple panel where all she says is help is like, that's kind of a massive stepping stone for her, I think. Just like in her sort of emotional maturity, I think that's a huge step. It's just admitting out loud that she wants help in any way.
Yeah. And I saw somebody a long time ago fake it till you make it in the terms of like confidence and stuff. I didn't really agree with that, just because yes, she was putting on a front for like a lot of things in her personal life, but like you still like how she rocked up to Luffy, got in the crew, did what she had to do. Like, that was a learned skill. She is confident in that. She knows what she's doing there. It's just when she got home is when everything would fall apart.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking so far about the excellent. It's great. I can't wait to keep reading it. I'm having a blast. Having a blast is the wrong word because I'm being emotionally torn apart. But I'm enjoying my time with One Piece currently. I guess. So I'm going to say maybe sort of my hopes and my expectations in the second half of this arc. And then after that, maybe you can think of just anything to leave me with. Anything I should maybe pay attention to, anything that I should look forward to, or whatever. So I basically am just hoping for a sort of climactic payoff to all of this build-up, all of this setup. I'm expecting a big team battle, basically. I don't know how it's going to last for the rest of the arc, is the one thing. I hope that it's maybe a bit more creative than the battle with Don Krieg, because I thought that was fine, but it all kind of took place in one spot, and it was only really Luffy and Krieg. No one else really got involved. So it was, in a way, kind of a static battle. So what I'm really hoping for is something bigger than that, something where everybody is involved. I mean, Arlong has a massive crew, Luffy has his crew now, they all have their own special things going on. So I want to see all of those different things interacting with each other in interesting ways, because I think they totally can at this point. But other than that, I don't really know what to expect as far as like wrapping the arc up or anything like that. I don't really have any hopes or expectations. I just hope for an emotional resolution with Nami and the villagers, really, which I assume I'll get in some way, but I don't know exactly what to expect from that. But that's where I stand with this arc so far. I'm loving it. But is there anything that you want to say about what's happened in this arc and what what maybe I should be looking for going forward.
I mean, I feel like I've said mostly like just feelings for this arc. Like anything, I felt like maybe I wanted to like make sure it was emphasized. I said that throughout most part, but for the next stuff, I would say I'm not gonna lie, I'm struggling kind of to remember the entirety of the fight because I only remember the big moment for me. But all I know
I
is
mean,
it feels extremely good. So I feel like you're gonna be getting most of what you were looking for
yeah,
there.
I think
Have we
it's
seen
only natural.
Sanji, Matt?
Have you seen what?
I don't know of how much you've seen. Like, Sanji hasn't really done a whole ton.
He's kicked a few
so
people.
far. Yeah, like that's about it.
That's about
so
all
like
he's
this
done.
is his first big deal with them. He's the newbie still.
That's true.
And also, while we were talking about like the whole time, like never changing his mind on Nami, Zoro also kind of didn't either. There was never really a hard moment where he was like, "Let's go get her."
And Sanji,
obviously, he had that first like reaction of like because he got to call her bluff, so he had like a reason to.
Yeah.
But like they've been together the longest, so and now we've gotten a bunch. Well, you know, not a bunch, but we've gotten newer people, so we have to see them interact with each other and how that's going to work out. It's obvious Sanji's a heavy hitter like Zoro.
Yeah.
So
and Sanji's also down bad, so he barely even needs a reason to save Nami.
Sanji, yeah. His fights can become very interesting, but I obviously won't go into that because we just gotta see him. We just got to see him kick his first bad guy, really, his first big one.
Yeah, I guess that's about it as far as this video goes. I think we talked about before potentially you just coming on for the rest of these One Piece sessions.
I'm cool with that.
So
I'd want to give myself more time for notes, but I was just me procrastinating.
Yeah.
I did that all in 3 hours.
So for anybody who's been checking these out and enjoying them, you can expect Nick to show up for the rest of the One Piece videos, really. And that means that from this point forward, I'll kind of have an immediate voice that is more knowledgeable, who can make note of specific things or emphasize certain aspects of the story that maybe as a first timer I'm not picking up on quite as strongly. So I think for a series this monstrously big, I think that could be really fun to have. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope everybody else has enjoyed this and has been enjoying these One Piece videos so far. And yeah, I hope to see everyone in the next session of this, where I'll be finishing up the Arlong arc of One Piece. So thanks again for watching. See everybody later. And you wanna say goodbye?
You should read One Piece. That is the best send off I can give anyone, is to recommend your life better.
Alright. Well, thanks for watching if you watched. Hope to see you next time. Goodbye.